over the pronouncement of the names. Because we're here for the Walker family. We're here for the community of the city of Akron, who, as you heard from Bobby, had to live with this terror, sheer terror, for so many years. Jayland was a wonderful young man, and never once has that been said by the officers or their representatives. They've wanted to tear him down. We are here to lift him up, to show you the man that he was. And we are also here to reveal what the city really is. And our complaint sets that out. And Exhibit 1 to the complaint sets that out. Accountability starts today with the filing of the lawsuit. Transparency starts today with the filing of the lawsuit. Getting to the facts starts today with the filing of the lawsuit. What has been shared with everyone so far has been filtered. The facts have been filtered. We're going to now be able to take the filter off and get to the real facts. And we will all learn that Jayland should not have died on June 27th. There was no reason for him to die on June 27th. We will honor his legacy every day that we move forward in this case. Everything we do will serve to honor his legacy. We appreciate the courage that Pam and Jada have shown, that Pastor Robert has shown throughout these most trying times. We are now here to start the journey to justice. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Paige White.
Today begins the journey to justice for Jayland Walker, and the journey to justice for Pam and Jada Walker, and for this Akron community. You see, in this past year, we gave the state of Ohio a chance to get accountability and some semblance of justice, and they failed. Throughout this year, it's been a continuous stream of mischaracterizations. Jayland was violent, he was a menace, and in some ways brought it on himself. That's what this family has had to deal with, on top of losing their loved one. But today, the Walker family reclaims their narrative, and they're able to tell the story of Jayland and what happened to him almost a year ago. And see, through this lawsuit, this newsletter demonstrates what Black and brown people have known since the inception of this country, which is that the racist foundations that breed police departments like this are breed officers who put 90 bullets towards a single human. This newsletter talks about the community members as though they are animals. And one of the first things I said in this lawsuit was, we don't treat dogs that way. I am so proud to stand next to this family and stand next to my partners as we walk down this road to get justice for Jayland Walker.
And we're going to hear from Joe Fouché III.
Good afternoon. I'm gonna keep this brief. I believe my partner said everything that needs to be said, and out of respect to the case, I just want to bring everybody's attention today. The Department of Justice released the investigation for the George Floyd case and the Minneapolis Police Department, and this is the Friday before Juneteenth, which is supposed to be a celebration, and we just want to take note of the hallowed ground we stand on and what today means for this case. Thank you.
I'm reminded by Paige to just mention that there will be a march that's going to be being organized right now by local community leaders that's taking the Jayland Walker story to Washington, D.C. on the 27th of this month. I did speak to Pastor Robert, who's here on my left. He said that he's not going to be speaking at this point, so we appreciate his presence here. And I just want to say on his behalf how grateful I have been for his counsel, for his steadfast leadership of this family. I know he wouldn't say it, but he's been through a lot. He's endured both local and regional criticisms for the positions he's taken here on behalf of his own family. And he's shouldered that willingly and has embraced it. So I want to thank him as well as all of his church for supporting the family, as they have been very, very, very much supported by the activities of the Church of God in Christ, as well as Pastor Robert's leadership at that church. Having said that, I have no other statements to make at this time, and if there's questions, we'll gladly take a few. Again, please remember, we're not going to be taking any questions about the nature of the investigation, how we got the information. We're not going to be commenting about specific allegations in the lawsuit because those allegations speak for themselves. However, if you do have questions about those allegations in a way that I can't answer them, I'll do my best.
I know that Ms. Walker is very judicious when she speaks, but I know that a lot of people like to hear from her strength and to hear what she just answered about what she wants to gain from this lawsuit.
I appreciate your question, and you know, it's a thoughtful question, and you offer those all the time, so we appreciate that. I've talked to Pam about speaking, and her words were, if I hear too much, I might just start crying out. This is a complicated experience for her because this details the loss of her son's life as well as it details his martyrdom. As the mother of one who's been martyred, she suffers with that loss. I can tell you that when we spoke of the lawsuit, including the various allegations about it, she was very careful to tell me something that I will share with you. She said, this is not about the money. This is about this never happening again. And this is about the dignity of my son. So as a very private person, she's opted not to speak today because this is a heavy moment for her and a moment that doesn't give her all of the open kind of embrace that she has gotten from her children and from her family.
Do you as a family plan to go to Washington as well on June 27th?
Our entire team intends on going to support that experience, and part of that experience is going to be to speak to and ask for an audience with the Department of Justice. We can.
Does that include the family as well?
Yes, that would include the family as well. Yes.
Can you talk at all about any of the changes that you'd like to see within the Akron Police Department?
Yeah, you know, I note that in the media the other day, Chief Mylett spoke of changes that are coming. How interesting that the pursuit policy is being changed. We embrace the fact that that's happening. We'd like to be a part of the wording of that pursuit policy because the woman seated to my left lost her son to the unconstitutional way in which they chased him down and killed him. So the first change I'd like to see is a dialogue with a city that's kept itself quiet. You know, there's a phrase that police use, and it's constant, it's ever present. If you didn't do anything wrong, just talk to me. If it's not your fault, what do you have to fear? And we've never once been invited to speak with them about what they did to Jayland. So I'd love an opportunity to talk with the city leadership. I know we have a new mayor coming in the coming months, and I remain open to, on behalf of the family, a dialogue that invites the local community to have a voice in how they are policed. Those changes are fundamental to a contemporary and modern police force. It used to be in the old days, as Paige mentioned, the history of this institution called policing, it's terrifying when you realize, as she has taught me and others have taught me, that this institution started to keep slaves in check. And it's evolved since then, but it's evolved oftentimes in curiously strange and grotesque ways. Like, for example, they should not be training their officers on how to say the right pretty words in a police report. We'd like that to stop. If you hurt someone, admit it. Just like you would make us do. We don't get to write pretty letters to the police and say how we didn't do it. So we'd appreciate if the police reports that are drafted were accurate and that they step up their enforcement and supervision of those efforts, including the mandatory issuance of body cams to every single officer on duty without the ability to silence that mic and without the ability to delete the video. That would be fabulous. In a technological era of the 21st century, that should be no problem. We'd also remind you of the demands we've made prior to and during our time speaking to the Department of Justice, a discussion that we've had many times. Those demands include, and we embrace again, what happened with issue 10, that there is justice reform that starts with local community leaders overseeing the police department. And I'll summarize it given our time, and that the department listens to its constituents, and that the fighting stops between the leadership members who are protecting the police, and that's it. That's all they're there for, is to protect the police at the expense of the citizenry. So we'd like that to stop too. Yes?
Bobby, I know this is probably something you're not going to answer because it's a question about the lawsuit, but I'll ask anyway. For the longest time, no one knew who was driving the Buick the night before. And at least for me, this is the first time I'm seeing that there was a white male driving it the night before from a different police department. Without giving any names, can you expound on who was driving the night before?
Well, we've already discussed in prior public conferences, and the city led off, I'll remind you, back in July of 2020, they led off a presentation of what happened that involves Jayland driving the vehicle that night, and that the New Franklin police get the race of the person wrong. We have taken the position, and we take it again, that however you look at that issue, there is absolutely no interest of the officers to arrest anyone for what happened on that chase that may or may not have happened out of Franklin. And the reason I point that out to you is that if you look at the complaint and the allegations that we spell out, we track what was discovered and we track what's been uncovered since then. And what's been uncovered is that the officers first encounter Jayland in the vehicle. They run the plate through leads. They determine he's a licensed, valid owner without warrants. The vehicle comes up as having been involved in a prior night's chase, and they don't do anything about that. So the notion, and this is another reframing of the issues, the notion that the identity of the driver is material to what happened to Jayland is an empty place for us to go. That said, I can't discuss who the identity of the driver is or would be thought of. I'll just say that we have reported, as we've learned, that that was the allegation made, that a white male was driving the vehicle. Yes?
Mr. DiCello, thank you all for your time, first of all.
Thank you.
I was going to ask, if the court decides not to name the officers, will you?
No, well, we don't disagree with the court. Let's make that very clear. It's not our prerogative to decide, when a court's got a motion in front of it, which it has right now, it's not our prerogative to comment on that motion or disagree with any judge. That'll never come out of my mouth or any mouth of my team members here. But what I will say is that, I think my partner Ken put it really well. That whole thing has been a sideshow and a circus that has nothing to do with the death of Jayland Walker, fundamentally. And we don't want that sideshow to become the issue here. We want everyone, each one of you who've gathered here today, to remember, look at his face, his beautiful face and his beautiful life. That's what we want. And we want to keep that in focus. His beautiful life. We are reminded that this weekend is Father's Day, and that's a day he'll never share with a child, that he'll never have. And so we want his memory to live today as it ought to have lived last year. On this very day he was alive. Remember that. So we're going to try to keep that focus today. Thank you. Yes?
Alluded to it earlier, calls for DOJ to investigate Akron police. Have you heard anything back since that request was made?
We have heard things back. As you might imagine, the dialogue with the federal government and its leadership is not a one-time encounter. We've had many opportunities, and we continue to work both the phones and the communication channels that we have to remind the federal government of the importance of this family and, frankly, of the importance of this city's current situation. I have to say it again. I will challenge any rational person to tell me how this newsletter that was published in 1998 and 1999, or discovered by then, how this newsletter did not result in the immediate termination of the person who wrote it, and for anyone who received it and thought it was okay. It is, as a friend of mine used to say, is beyond the pale. I can't put my head around it. And so what that tells us, and I'm responding now to the constant drone of this was Jayland's fault that's been in the media, what that tells us is this was not Jayland's fault. There's been a culture of violence in the city, and there's been a constant, ever-present disdain for the citizenry that document shows, and it's proven, I believe, by the fact that people who've reviewed that document and said it was funny are still working in your city right now today as officers. Anybody else? I want to say thank you all. You do a great job and an important job for us. It's what makes America great, in addition to the court system. So our country is special because we have a court system to turn to, and we embrace the opportunity that court system is going to give us. And we thank you for the First Amendment opportunity that we have here today. The very protections that you give us by giving us a chance to say what really happened on June 27th, 2022. Thank you. Look at him. Look at him. He was such a beautiful person.